Yeah, always put me in the front row.
Okay, we will call this meeting to order, and it is being recorded. We thank all of you for coming and participating in this. It's really nice to see folks come out. I think that everybody signed in when they came in the door. If somehow you missed signing in, please let Ron know and get your name on the list so that we can know who all was here. We also have a speaker list. If you sign that, your name will be called and you can ask your questions or make your comments. When you speak and when anyone else speaks, please, everyone show respect to everyone. We can't not show respect. And there will be no invasion of anyone's personal privacy during this meeting. If you think of something that you didn't say or you didn't sign the list and you have something that you want to say, at the end of the meeting there will be a public comment period, and just let us know and everyone will get to speak who wants to. The way this meeting will go is that these fellows from EL Northwest, EL Internet Northwest, will do a presentation and then we will have the question and answer period. So at this time I will introduce Eric and Kevin Lederhaus.
Okay. Thank you all, Madam Chair. Thank you for having us here today. We appreciate everyone showing up and learning a little bit about what we do, what our company is, and what we're doing with the Yak School District. First, a little general information on us personally. I work for EL Internet Northwest at times. Eric Lederhaus owns EL Internet Northwest. We're basically born and raised Boundary County. We built everything in Boundary County as our primary. We have some extensions into Montana. So, myself, I again grew up in Boundary County. I was a little bit political. I was a county commissioner over there for 6 years. My primary business is aviation. I've worked in helicopter aviation pretty much my entire life. So that's part of what I do. Firefighting, I'm a mechanic by trade. My history is in aviation maintenance. Had a business in Boundary County for 30 years in aviation. And then moving on to Eric. Eric is same duration in Boundary County. He's been in mill automation. He's been in the automation business where he automated basically anything that needed to be automated. He's done that. And we're going to roll into what he's done with EL Internet Northwest. So with that, basically I'm going to give a brief on who our company is and what we do out of Boundary County. And we appreciate you having us here today so you can kind of learn what we're doing or what we're doing with the school district. Did that move? I have to hit it twice. There we go. Okay, so our company is all local, Boundary County, North Idaho. We maintain our offices there. Our crews are all from Boundary County. Well, we actually have some Montana employees that travel over and work for us. We have very talented people over there. Most of them have taken training at our facility to do the job. So we try to hire out of the community only because we think it's important to keep the jobs in the community where we can. We're family owned. Again, Eric as the primary, but he also has his 2 daughters that work at the company, his son-in-law, his wife's involved. So it's definitely a very family-oriented, structured company. We have 25 local jobs. We are proud of that fact that we keep 25 people working in the North Idaho area. Since, which I'll get into, but since 2010 is when Eric decided he'd get into the internet business because it was becoming very popular and you just couldn't get any kind of service over there. It was very, very difficult. Our contracted mission here with the school district is they are working with the federal E-rate program, and because of their use of the E-rate program to keep the costs down for the local district, they were able to get a grant to bring internet to the school, high-speed broadband internet direct to the school. And with that, they made contact with our company, which we then engineered a program to bring it over here and get them high-speed internet. Our goal is to give them, and I'll get into the local area, excellent wireless broadband. We do it, we produce it, and deliver it throughout Boundary County. And we have the best reputation in North Idaho, I believe, or probably Idaho, but we get very positive reviews for what we do and how we help the community as well. And I usually shoot from the hip, so apologize for my kind of stammering and stuttering, but I just kind of talk. So that's why I'm not real practiced on this. Okay, so in the who are we category, this is a picture in front of our facility. We actually bought the old Hops building over there, which is huge, and then he changed the building into an internet company. So this is just a basic rundown of our company structure. In 2010, he recognized the need for internet in the North Idaho area. His investment was initially into the infrastructure of wireless technology. At that time, they had these very slow radios. You could get maybe 64 to 512 kilobytes a second. So as he developed this infrastructure, he ended up with a total of 20 towers of some height in Boundary County. And as the years progressed, the technology improved and improved for the wireless radios. So he'd have to upgrade. And now they're at an extremely high efficiency and the ability to push out massive amounts of data to residences. So it can be comparable to fiber in some cases, to where it's that high of speed. So it's a very good technology, and it's a very safe technology, which we'll get into. And this is just a general overview because we're in Boundary County, to let you know that we are big enough and strong enough to do this type of project and to support this type of project. We own a cable company in Boundary County. Eric purchased that so that we could cover the city of Bonners Ferry with high-speed internet. That was one of our first steps, and he upgraded that to the tune of several $100,000 to actually make it function well in Bonners Ferry. And then in 2017 and 18, we started seeing the advent of fiber optics. So fiber optics is like the final solution to delivery of internet. It's something that we wish we could get everywhere and put everywhere, but the cost to remote houses or residential areas away from the city center is just very expensive. It goes from delivery in town for fiber optics, cost about $400 per household, $400 to $500. If you go out 5 miles, it can be $30,000 per household. So it's just an expensive infrastructure, and it takes a lot of time to put it in. We have put a lot of it in Boundary County, at least from in the, if you will, metropolitan area. So we started putting in fiber optics. We overbuilt, which just means we had a cable system, and then we added fiber optics to it over the entire town of Bonners Ferry. So we're basically putting ourselves out of business in the cable company because we know fiber optics is the final solution. And then we saw during COVID, the state of Idaho utilized federal money and did what was called the CARES Act funding. So because all the kids had to stay home and a lot of people had to work from home, everybody needed internet at home. And every internet system provider in our area just died because there was so much need for it, they couldn't produce the speed. So they put money into it. We actually went out for one of those grants. It's the first time that we've ever gone after any kind of grant. But we achieved a grant for fiber delivery, which I'll get into just the structure of it. The towers and our wireless system, I'm just going to give you a brief of what we've been able to accomplish over there. And we have done some over here. We have some in the Troy area as well. So our mountaintop towers, and these are the bigger towers, but they're way up on top of mountains typically. These sites are where we distribute the most amount of internet because they're looking down on houses instead of sideways through trees, things like that. These are an extremely low power facility. We just were talking about this. The average power that we have to produce, we do with solar panels on these sites. The amount of power we consume for most sites is equivalent to 3 100-watt light bulbs. So everything that we send out is the same radiation level, if you will, of 3 standard incandescent 100-watt light bulbs. Compared to cellular service, a cell tower or cell service has to have primary power from the regular power company, and they use upwards of 200 amps of power, where we're using 3 amps of power at the most. So that's the difference in the type of power output that we utilize. Those are okay. That first slide, the left-hand site is about the size of tower that we're looking at on Baldy Mountain. So it's about a 50-foot tower, but it's so high up, it takes a wider base to keep the structure up in that area. So those are typically the towers that we put on mountaintops. Then when we get down into valleys or servicing areas that have trees in the area, we use these 2 towers typically. The medium tower, which will probably have one in the trees in the valley here, and then a small tower, which is just barely pops above the trees. This is something like what we're looking at for the school, depending on how we structure it. We're still working out the fine details on that one. Very quickly through Boundary County, these are our tower sites. They're just scattered all over the place, and we are able to hit about 90% of the geographic area of Boundary County. The reason there's so many towers is just like up here, there's rolling hills and places that you just can't see. This technology is pure line of sight. It's at such a low power that it won't go through this wall. It won't go through a tree. So you have to be able to see what you're trying to receive. So especially now in today's technology, you must be able to see the radio or you're not going to get a signal from it. That's how low power it is. So that we have a lot of towers for that purpose. Again, this is just around the Bonners Ferry area, more towers. Very briefly, what we've done in Bonners Ferry, this is a fiber optic overlay. I just spoke about the CARES Act projects. In 2020, we received enough funding to put fiber optics throughout Moyes Springs. So there's 320 residents in that area. We now, in 1 year, have 240 of those people have signed up for fiber because it's very inexpensive. This is just infrastructure stuff on that. This year, 2021, we've expanded considerably over there in the fiber. We did a project for the Kootenai Tribe of Idaho where we brought fiber out to their facility. That's about a $250,000 project. They now have internet throughout the tribal areas. We put in fiber optics throughout the north side of Bonners Ferry. We're doing a lot of underground work, so we bury pipes and feed the fiber optics through that. And I'm just going to jump ahead. So in and around Bonners Ferry, this is our fiber. So we've got fiber that goes as far as 5-6 miles north of Bonners Ferry and about 5-6 miles south of Bonners Ferry, and then east to Moyer Springs. So we've invested about a total of about $4 million just in the fiber optic side in the last year and a half. Okay, and jump into the reliability of fixed wireless. One of the primary reasons that we like fixed wireless is we can support and state clearly that it has an extremely high reliability factor. I'm going to jump just ahead a slide. This basically, first I'll explain the project. I forgot to replace this one. How the internet's going to get into the Yak Valley is it starts at Black Mountain. I don't know if anyone knows where Black Mountain is, but it's directly above Bonners Ferry. From that location, it shoots 20 miles to Baldy Mountain. And then from there, it'll drop down into the valley. And then from that position to the school. So it's got a total of, we already have the Black Mountain site constructed. We're preparing the facility for Baldy Mountain. And that was one of the delays of this whole project, was getting special use permit from the Forest Service. It took a very long time. And the patience that the school has shown and the support of the school has been awesome on that. So, and we're hoping to be supportive of them as well. But we finally received that in late September, and that's why now we have just a very short period of time, because their funding, where they have to spend that money, runs out June 15th of 2022. So we have a winter in between us and when we have to have the project completed, which is perfect.
Kevin, it's the 30th.
I'm sorry?
June 30th is our deadline.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you. So, apologize.
Sorry.
No, not at all. We wanted to just show briefly a comparison between Starlink. Starlink's an excellent product, and don't get us wrong, they're in a beta test right now. The issues with Starlink are, especially down here, the angle that you have to be able to see Starlink as the satellites pass over has to be a given distance. It's either 35 or 25 degrees, so you have to have a very large range of sight in order to even have the system. And then at their best coverage, they have what's called 97.5% uptime. And the reason that most people are having an issue with them is the people that have to utilize it for Zoom calls or VoIP calls, because as I've written here, out of every 10 you lose, you have the potential of losing internet 10 days out of every year, 2.5 days out of 100 days, 36 minutes out of 24, and 90 seconds out of 1 hour. That last one is the most important one, because if it blips anytime during that 1 hour and you're on a video call, it drops the call. Or if you're on a VoIP call, it drops the call. It isn't as important when you're streaming movies or anything like that, because they typically buffer, so they have the data up ahead. But with Zoom calls, they don't do that, so it will just drop the call. The school has a great need for being able to do Zoom calls and basically having internet all the time. So what we do, and I know this won't make a whole lot of sense, and it's also very small, but when we set up a fixed wireless system, the performance rating is, the only way we'll do it is if it meets certain performance ratings. The performance rating on this fixed wireless system is up 99.99999% of the time. It's called 5 nines, which means basically it's up all the time. You don't drop Zoom calls, you don't have that issue. We also have, as part of our system, each one of our cell sites, I said cell, sorry about that. Each one of our sites has monitoring 24 hours a day. The system that monitors these sites checks for, we have the batteries set up in there, and we have the solar panels, and then the last resort is we have a backup generator. So if we don't have sun for several days in a row, or we don't have wind to generate it with a small wind turbine, then the generator kicks in and does the charging of the batteries. But typically we get away with just the solar panels and potentially a wind generator. We monitor each one of our sites 24/7, and it feeds back to our facility in Bonners Ferry. It lets us know if there's any issues at the site, so we can preemptively get ready to go up and do a correction if we need to. It also texts, especially his phone. This guy stays up all the time. But it lets our technicians know, hey, we've got an issue at a given site. That allows us time to get up there, do any repairs necessary so that we don't lose service for any period of time. There's always that potential, and we can always have something go wrong that we can't control. But typically, we can rectify the situation before it becomes a problem. So the reasons that we feel that, first for the school, but also for the community, we feel that this would be a great advantage for this area. The school, of course, needs it for overall function and the cost of, but also, once we have that in place, it's definitely and never is our intent to stop with just, hey, we're grabbing that chunk of money and we're done. We want to then bring in internet to the residents of this community. And what that would give you is the potential of a VoIP phone. So if you ever lose your phone line going out of the valley, you still have phone. It gives you Wi-Fi calling, so even though your phone isn't working and you're not on cellular data, you can actually make phone calls in and out of the valley. So if you have any emergencies and the phone line's down, you still have that capability. We work a lot with emergency services, law enforcement, search and rescue. On top of that potential of calling law enforcement and the other agencies, they also work with us a lot of times in putting some of their equipment on our towers, and we do that a lot of times for free. We've worked with the Border Patrol. They have quite a bit of equipment on our northern towers where they can take a camera and see somebody's watch at 5 miles away and tell what time it is. So, but we work a lot with agencies. We work with the Boundary County Sheriff's Department. We have repeaters on some of our towers, and we do that as a service. We also give free internet to fire departments, things like that. Because we, everything over there is volunteer, which I'm assuming everything here is volunteer. So, at no charge, we try to put all that in for them. And as quickly as I got, this is Brother Eric. When we were doing the large fiber projects last year. I don't know if I've covered everything that I needed to cover, but I wanted to try and make it brief so we had plenty of time to answer your questions, discuss any concerns you may have. We heard a lot of talk that we wanted to make sure we were answering any questions you had. This is nothing like cellular. We do not represent a cell company, nor do we profess to be adding a cell company. Cellular companies take, as I mentioned, a lot of power. So the Baldy Mountain site, we would not have the capability to put a cellular service on our tower because we could not supply them with enough power to do that. It's a massive difference between those two. And then, very frankly, I don't believe that a cellular company is going to do that because they need enough customers to make it make sense to them. So if they're going to have to try and put enough power at Baldy Mountain, you'd be talking about generator only. They almost, I don't think they do at all put in cellular sites where there isn't a permanent source of power. And there is no power and there won't be any power at Baldy Mountain. So it was fun to engineer it. It was been at Baldy Mountain a lot of times, and I love that area up there. The first place that we chose, there was a spot where an old fence post was, and it was poured concrete, and the historical person for the Forest Service said, nope, that's a historical site. So we started all over again. And we found a new spot. They went through the process again, and we're good. We're also not right at the peak, which is one thing that we did hear some concerns about is, okay, are you putting a tower next to the lookout, the historic lookout tower, that then the people that go up there and rent it won't enjoy the view, whatever that is. We're actually almost 2,000 feet to the northwest of the tower now. You basically can't even see the tower from the existing fire tower. So, and from that, unless I've missed something, that's our introduction. Again, thank you for having us. Now we'd like to just get into answering your questions, not just from this list, but we're certainly happy to hear anybody's questions and see what we can answer. And you wanted to use the microphone on these?
Yeah, if we could use the microphone, because I'm recording this, so that I can have a permanent official record for the school meeting, so. As he
Okay.
calls your name, just raise your hand in case I don't know your name.
Craig Johnson.
Now, this is point-to-point microwave technology. I didn't hear much said about the electromagnetic frequencies that are coming through in the safety studies that would be something that the community would want to be concerned with for health reasons. I don't know if you just did not want to mention that, but I'd love to hear what safety studies you've relied upon, what safety studies you have informed the school about so that they knew how to make a decision when signing the contract. And because my understanding is that there are harmful effects to the biology of human life, plant life, and animal life. And I didn't hear much mention about that. I know you said about the power being the equivalent of 3 light bulbs.
Correct.
You know, that's not quite the same scenario as electromagnetic frequencies that are going to be beamed through the valley. And I'd love to hear you expand on that and assure the school, this community, that all health studies, I don't think that most of the governmental organizations' studies are credible. The study that they concluded in 2018 on 2G and 3G showed that there was carcinogenic effects for those microwave frequencies. And I believe they've refused to study 5G, 4G, and 5G, and whatever it's expanding to. Please expound on that, please.
Okay, I'll do the best I can, sir. Of course, we do have to rely on the results of the studies that are out there. One of the reasons I mentioned the 3 incandescent light bulbs, the maximum power, if you will, is the potential of, in the radiation end, the potential radiation of 3 100-watt light bulbs. The differences between cellular technology and what we're doing is from a cell tower, a true cell tower, the minimum safe standing distance in front of that antenna is 250 feet. The recorded minimum safe standing distance of the technology we use is 15 inches. So the difference in output and the difference in strength of that signal is absolutely no comparison. It's one of the reasons that we use that technology is because of the extremely low power output. As far as the magnetic aspect, I'm happy to look that up to what we use, but I can't answer. I don't know the answer to that one, or I absolutely would answer it. Again, the difference in power when we're talking about it's 5 amps at 50 volts, so that's basically 3 amps at 120 volts. Those 3 amps, whatever potential 3 amps of 120 volts has, that's what we can produce. We can't produce any more than that because that's all we have. So if you think about the strength of something at 3 amps, which again is 3 light bulbs, or maybe I could make a different comparison, but we consider that compared to cellular technology, which is upwards of 200 amps. Our signal won't pass through a wall. Cellular goes through everything. Our systems won't pass through a tree. If you don't have pure line of sight, it's impossible to get the signal through. It used to be. They had some earlier radios that actually would kind of what we would call burn through trees because the signal was stronger and a different frequency. But they have reduced that frequency to a very narrow range, and it will not pass through anything now. So that's the best answer I can give you. I'm happy to get people's email addresses and forward as much information as I have on our technology.
Let me speak a second. When it comes, excuse me, frog. When it comes to government studies, I personally don't trust them all either, just to be straight with everybody here. But when you talk about the amount of energy something is putting out, an antenna, and the government says that you can sit a child 16 inches in front of our antennas, but it's 250 feet for cellular. It gives you an understanding how much lower our power is. We are minute. When our antennas, the dishes, they're small, it's new technology that instead of burning or putting out lots of power to get to the customer, it puts out low power, and they're better receivers on the end of that. So you don't have to put out a lot of power. It's low power with a very good receiver on the other end of it is what it amounts to. Our point-to-points that go from Baldy to here, they're very much directional. And then what you call an access point that you put on the tower that will pick up multiple customers to the same point. They're also extremely low power. This stuff is it's in the same way as what's bombarding us all the time, because we have satellites going overhead. And all those satellites have to have pure line of sight. So we're doing the same thing with actual way lower powers, but they're closer. But we have to have a small dish. And but I guess back to the original statement, is that cellular companies, when I work on our towers, I don't have to put any radio recorders on me for the RF coming off the tower. If I get on a cell tower, even behind their antennas, I have to wear one. If I'm in front of it, it'll warn me. Ours will not. So it's a whole different ball game, I guess.
Can I follow up?
Yeah.
Have you measured with an EMF meter the frequencies that are coming off your towers? And do you know what that number is?
The magnetic frequency, I don't know that we do know that number.
I don't know. It doesn't trigger our sensor that we have to wear when we're on cell towers.
That's a different question.
We can certainly look into that, and we're not holding back any information, we assure you. We just have never really looked at the electromagnetic aspect of it, again, because of the amount of power. To create a magnetic field, to generate a stronger magnetic field, you need more power. So it's directly related to the amount of power that you can put out. EM fields, signals, either one of them, it's relative to the amount of power. So, but I will look into that, and if we can get
Yeah, that's
If you're
fine.
willing to do an email or some kind of contact, I'm happy to forward to you what we can find.
I'm writing down questions that aren't quite answered
Okay.
or topics,
Thank you.
and then I will send that to you.
Okay.
And if you send it to me, then I can get it out to anybody that,
Absolutely happy to do that. We're good? Okay. I think it's Ray. It could be Ray or Roy McCready.
So it's my understanding that you can't tell us the EMF range?
Today I cannot. I will be happy to get you that information, but we've never had, I guess we've never had the EM question, the actual electromagnetic. All I can tell you is that EM, just from knowledge that I have and I know he has, EM is the same relative to the amount of power that you're putting out. So if you're generating an electromagnetic field, the more amperage, if you will, you can put to that, the higher field you can generate. Absolutely. I agree with you guys on that. So I will absolutely get every bit of information on EM I can.
Well, if you don't know the EMF range, how can you tell us it's safe?
From,
Go ahead.
from every study, every bit of information that we've attained, the, if you will, the comparison that he made with the differences between cellular service and what we do, and the fact that what we're doing is no different, if not lower, than the satellites that are continuously putting that signal out. So, as far as assurances, is there anything that's 100% safe? I don't. I know that there's no way that we can be 100% safe. I know that we have EM fields from the Earth. We have EM fields from satellites. There's generators. Any generators create around here is creating an EM field.
Power lines.
Power lines creating EM fields. So that's. I know that the studies show that it's 100% safe.
Which studies are those?
I didn't bring studies. I'm happy to send studies over to you. Happy.
We were just looking at that yesterday, actually, and we have documentation, studies that, based on the radio company that we use, they have to follow and they have to get approvals by the FCC based on the radiation their equipment puts out. May
I interject you on that really quick? The FCC doesn't do environmental impact studies. That's got the EPA. The EPA has not done one.
Okay, this was a FCC that they have to abide by the frequencies and the power outputs of it. I can send you what they had.
Yes,
But
please.
based on the literature that Cambium puts out with their equipment, and what rules you have to follow, you can be within 16 inches of the face of these radios. And based on that, they say at that point you are safe. Would I sit at 16 inches? No, I would not. But I also wouldn't sit for an extended period of time at 250 feet from a cell antenna. I guess my point is, we are way, way lower power ratings. And quite honestly, your home router, if you have home routers, they have the same output as what our antennas do, believe it or not.
So if you're using HughesNet or one of those, the wireless router that you have in your home puts out as much radiation as what we put out.
On 5G it does, but you can turn that off in the router settings and then operate it at a lower power.
You have differences when you're talking about 5G as related to the 5th generation or the frequency.
Both.
Okay, it's the 5th generation is only a cellular as far as I know today. 2.4 is 2.4 gigahertz, and then 5G is 5 gigahertz. Now it's relative to not only the frequency but the power it puts out. Most of our equipment is an unlicensed frequency to the customers, and it's in the 5G radio, 5 gigahertz radio frequencies, 5.1, 5.2, and 5.8.
5G operates in the microwave range.
There's a lot of microwaves. Microwave is a term, I don't know the lowest frequency of what they use it for. But a microwave is just length of a wave for it. And so I guess we can get you more information on that, but as far as what the literature says, it's 16 inches from in front of the antenna. Like I said, I would not follow that personally. I wouldn't sit in front of an antenna. But then I wouldn't sit next to my home router either.
Well, you said you have how long to complete this project?
What's that?
How long did you say you guys have to complete this project?
We're contracted to complete and produce building by the end of June 2022.
And in the span of that year, would it be possible to make sure that all this information is available to the Valley residents before this project starts? I mean, I'm assuming you guys aren't going to build in the winter.
It's already started.
It's already started.
Oh, yeah. Construction at our facilities, because we have, everything has to be completed. So we're producing the containers and the information, or the equipment we need for building those. We've done all the studies, everything that we needed to do, and the school has contracted with us to do this installation.
So it's my understanding that you guys do not know the level of EMF radiation you're putting out from this tower, but you've already begun construction on it?
I believe we've answered that. We've been doing this same technology for years.
But you don't know the EMF frequency?
I'm sorry, we will get you what we can on EM. I truly believe it is 100% safe technology because of the power that it can generate.
Thank you.
Okay, I think he's answered as much as they can in regards to the questions that were asked by Craig and by Ray. Anybody else have anything on that topic at this moment? Because they cannot go any further here without going back and sending us the information. And I will make sure that it gets to you.
Diane, I got a quick question. After all the years I spent in the military around VHF, UHF, you've got to be in the pretty much from line, from one dish to the other to be in any harm.
In the case of microwave, yes. And as we mentioned, the wavelength is microwave, so there is as you said.
So basically, you got to be up in the air in between the two dish satellites to be in any harm.
For the actual microwave, again, it's just such a low power output, you're 100% right.
Okay.
But even if you were in that beam, if you will, a true beam, it doesn't have enough
So
power.
basically, you're looking at one dish at Baldy and a dish at the school.
One in between, because we can't quite hit the school from, unless we went up 500 feet.
All right.
I don't think anybody wants a 500-foot tower.
Thanks.
Lynn, do you have something for this?
So there will be a tower on the school property, a lower tower?
That's the intent. We have two options actually, and we're surveying that. We're trying our best to come up with the best scenario to the lowest impact. So we don't like to put up a tower where we don't have to. And when we do put up towers, we try and keep them as short as possible and very small. So it's the towers that we try to put up, we've even painted towers to blend in with trees, things like that. We don't use the tree towers, but we have tried to blend in. Right now, I can't answer what we're putting at the school because we're still working on 2 sites. So we have construction going on the Baldy site at our facility, but the other 2 sites, we're defining that right now and working on those spots.
And then from that tower into the actual school building, will it be hardwired into the school?
Yes.
So we won't be shooting it into the
No,
No.
we will not be shooting it.
Craig, did you have something else?
Yes, does your insurance company have a clause that they're going to assume liability for any future discovered health risk? Or the school, we have that clause? Who's assuming liability? Does your insurance have that clause?
I suppose that anybody can be civilly liable, but the equipment manufacturer that makes the equipment, if they're producing something that is outside of safety regulations, then I'm absolutely certain they'd be liable.
We stay way, way within the legal documentation, everything that we can find on this equipment. I would never, even though it'd be legal, I would never put a point-to-point dish right above somebody's head in a schoolyard. Even though it says in the documentation that you have to be a minimum 16 inches. I would never do that. We follow all the guidelines as far as any kind of radiated power in any way that they state in any literature, and then we go way beyond that in that we never have these dishes anywhere near anybody. We always put her up way high and not where anybody's going to be in front of them. Just because even though it's legal, I don't trust 100% all of the government studies on this stuff, okay? That's why we go beyond what we legally have to do.
So the questions that have been asked so far, people will get information from these people, and Diane will forward it to you so that you have all of the information that they have and your questions answered the best they can. Can we go on to the next person on that list?
I would like to ask the lady back here in the ball cap, I see faces. Do you have something to say, hon? I'm the district clerk, and this has been my project, and I've been working on this for a very long time, and it has been publicly noticed, and so I want to hear every side. I want to know what my neighbors and my friends think about this. So if you have something to say on the topic of health issues here, because that's what we're talking about, please speak up.
Do you want to, do you want to do the last 2 names? And we,
Yes.
We only have 2 more people on the list?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
just
good.
two. If we do the 2 and then people that have follow-up or people that didn't get on the list that have
I
a
thought the list
question,
was
I think that's fair, right? The third name, I believe, is Lynn Edwards, or?
Not me.
Oh, okay. And did you get your question answered? Okay, thank you. And B, David? And I apologize. Campbell. Yes, sir. Sorry about that.
Thanks. Yeah.
Your writing is
David
as bad as
Gable.
mine.
I had a question as far as several questions, like cost to the subscriber. The principal subscriber, I think, is the school. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you have other subscribers, or
Not at this time.
are you planning on it, or?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, because I know it won't serve me or anybody down on the river because we don't have line of sight to anything. I can barely get a radio signal from Baldy.
So are you in the open area of the valley?
No, I'm a mile that way.
Okay. One of the things that we're doing right now, even though we may not be able to address it within this particular scope of project, is we're not stopping there. It doesn't make sense for this project to proceed unless we can also benefit. We'd love to see the kids not only have it at the school, but the potential of having it at home so that they can do their homework, etc. We think it's important, and I can tell you absolutely we will never hit everybody. It's just not going to happen. We've gone to the extent in Boundary County of having a person skin an entire tree and putting a radio all the way at the top just because they had to have internet. But because it's pure line of sight, from what we've installed, absolute potential of putting a very small tower somewhere else that might look down in an area where there's several houses. So we're not saying that there isn't potential there to expand that in some areas and provide more. It's certainly our intent to want a few customers that help support, one, the maintenance of the site, because it can be quite expensive. But two, everything we can do, at least in my opinion, helps the community and helps the school. So
In that
we're hoping
direction, oh, excuse me, I thought you were done. In the direction of hitting everybody, that's one of the things we're looking at right now is we can't shoot from Baldy directly to the school. We know that. So we're looking at options. We've got multiples, but what we're trying to do is find a location that would not only hit the school, but also hit the most people up the valley. That they could then get internet if they wished.
Yeah, not with the primary dishes. Don't misunderstand that one. We from that then use low power, what's called access points, which put out that faint signal like the satellite does, and then these super sensitive receivers that receive the signal into your house. That's what we do beyond the initial. So we don't intend on finishing this project and walking away. We really want some customers up here. We think that it would be, especially for all of the things that people need nowadays. When things get shut down by COVID, if you have to work from home, there's a lot of things that can be a great advantage if you have wireless internet. We'd love to say you get fiber up here someday. I have. It's massive.
$5 million was the quote I got 7 years ago to bring it from Troy to here.
Well, not only that, but that $5 million was on the poles.
Yes.
And on the poles, you have to pay
For 15 years, rent.
Yeah.
900 bucks a pole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's impossible. You can't support that. Anyway, so that's why wireless technology is the thing that would work up here.
Okay, so in other words, to pay for the project, how does this project get paid for then? Not just the school.
I can answer that.
Oh, yeah, please.
To get it from Baldy, from Bonners to Baldy, to the repeater to the school is paying for that. The school got a grant from the state of Montana, Broadband for Montana Schools, that would match 10% of the cost of this project. The other 90%, the school is involved in the E-rate program, and because of the poverty rate of our student population, we are funded 90% of our internet bill, and it used to be our phone bill, but not anymore. The cost of this project to build it, and then to bring the service in on an annual, monthly basis, 90% of that is paid for. So the bill is 100% paid for, and 90% of the service is paid for. If we did not have this funding, the E-rate funding, the school would not have internet because we could not afford it. It costs us $750 a month for HughesNet right now. We pay 90% of that, or we pay 10% of that. So if we don't have E-rate or E-rate compatible vendors to work with, which Starlink is not, and more than likely will not be for 5 years, the school doesn't have any internet at all, except what we have now, which is HughesNet, and we end up having to pay for 2 dishes because it takes that much to actually service the 5 students and the teacher's computer and my computer. And we still buffer. So,
David, did you have any more questions?
Yeah, I did. Are you going to lease out any portion of your tower for other uses? The one on Ball?
I don't believe we'll have enough power to lease it out.
Well, again, in that direction, I haven't really thought much about it, but definitely, if it was anything that took much power, we would end up having to expand, modify, because it's engineered, designed for what we're going to use, not for a cell company couldn't possibly do it through there on our power.
We have been working on projects as well, like the lookout tower. Obviously, we have lookout towers everywhere for fire watch. One technology that's really coming into play now is that we're able to utilize that site for fire watch. They actually have cameras now that can keep an eye on everything, and if it sees a hot spot, infrared signature, it can then notify the Forest Service. So that is one potential. Other than that, we certainly haven't anticipated anything else. We know we can't allow or won't have a cell company.
There, real quick, there is another site on Baldy, another tower. But that tower is for government use only.
Right.
And that's why, even though I tried to talk them into it basically, because all we need is 2 antennas on that site, in and out. There's plenty of tower there for it, but by the regulations and the way that site was written up, it's for government only. So they would rather us build another building, tower, than let us be on theirs.
And
Didn't make any sense
They
to
do
me.
have government radio through that. We have worked with Sheriff's Department for repeaters on some of our towers because there's a lot of areas that they can't get down into. They have a repeater up there right now for this area. However, if it came through potentially our system, it could come down to a lower tower to where it would get better up into areas where there might be a rescue happening or something. But those are just rarely used, so it doesn't take any power if there's a radio up there for that because it only works when there's an emergency.
And finally, last question, you have a lease through the Forest Service, I assume, and did they do an environmental assessment?
Oh, yeah, they went through a very long process, and we agreed to a large stack of requirements, not only for construction, but for maintenance. We have an environmental company that we actually contract with to design and define where and how we're putting this in. We're very conscious of low disturbance. We don't want to mess anything up. We don't want to mess with wildlife. It's something that I've certainly dealt with. I dealt with as a commissioner. We did a lot of endangered species control and management. So I know the concerns on that area especially.
Yeah, there's, in our paperwork, all the equipment that goes up there to build or install anything, everything has to be certified washed for weeds control. They did archaeology studies, hydrologists,
Historical studies.
historical. It
U.S.
took-
Fish and Wildlife Service review, which they put restrictions on the site as well.
Took 2 years for it to get through.
So it was heavily studied.
Thank you.
Anyone who speaks from this point forward, would you please state your name before you start to talk?
Freddie Johnson, you mentioned that there would be another tower between Baldy and the school, but on your map you did not show where that tower was going to be.
We mentioned that we have not, one of the items that we talked about is we try and put in as little infrastructure as possible. But because beyond the school, we want to have the ability to service some customers, we're looking right now, and we have several options, but in order to pick one of those, we're trying to get the best study, and we actually drove around all morning this morning looking at the different areas. You have very tall trees in the area. We can't shoot through those trees. It's just not possible. So we're looking for, we can look at Google Earth all day long. It shows us a lot of information, and we can draw lines from point A to point B, and we look at the elevation studies, but it doesn't show us the trees. So then you go up to these sites and you go, well, yeah, that's not going to work. And so we've been looking at each one of these and saying, okay, we can service the school, that's the number one thing, but is there a potential site to where we only have to put in one tower and it's going to also help a bunch of residents rather than just a tower solely for the school? And I'm sorry for just keep pointing at you, Pam. Pam's the school. But we don't want to impact the area any more than we have to. And the best thing for us is strategically located so that we don't have to put in little sites here and there. Boundary County took 20 tower sites to even get relatively good coverage, but most of those towers are just tucked at the end of a little canyon so that we can bounce from here to there and then service. We put in little teeny towers to service 10 customers, just so we can actually hit them. So yeah, there are all those considerations, the topographical, geographical, all the limitations that we're up against. We just truly don't want to put a tower where we don't have to put a tower. So we always look at that.
The actual frequency that's being shot from point to point, is it modulated? And if so, who's modulating?
That's a technology that Cambium works with, and I do not know their technology. It's probably proprietary, but it's a modulated, but I'm not sure how they do it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that back here. Could you say that again?
The modulation, go ahead.
Yeah. The company that supplies this equipment has technology inside that is proprietary. It is modulated, but they don't give out that information. The studies and the tests that they do and they have to comply with, they do. But there is technology in there that is proprietary. So we don't have some of that information.
So Noah Kehoe. I have a few technical questions. So are you guys leasing like our bandwidth through Ziply out of Bonners, or who's the main mainframe backbone in your network?
Thank you for that question. Actually, I totally forgot to bring it up. Okay, so in Boundary County, Bonners area, one of the things we pride ourselves on is that we have redundant backbones. We actually have 2 contracted pipes coming into Bonners Ferry which take different routes. And then we have equipment in Bonners Ferry that if somebody cuts one line, it automatically switches over to the other company, so we don't have downtime. That was a massive investment. We just finished that project, as a matter of fact. We do buy from 2 different companies. I mean, I'm not going to name them, but it is 2 separate companies, and they're very supportive. Interesting point in 2010, when he first started this, 1 gigabit is where he started. 1 gigabit cost you
Over $12,000 a month
$12,000 a month.
for a 1 gig pipe.
Today, 10 gigabit is somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000, 4,000. So, yeah, it's a massive difference. So it does allow us to have a lot of bandwidth available.
Okay, and on the second question on that is, what kind of throughput speeds and latency would they look at the school over that distance?
They have the option for speeds up to 1 gigabit per second. Honestly, I don't know what you chose for speed.
So, well,
It's designed to be able to do it. Latency here is going to be no more than 20 microseconds. We have our, and that's no more than, because we run around off our 2 fiber pipes that feed us. We run around 10 millisecond ping time. And that is from our head end to Seattle and back. So when our computer puts out a ping, for people that don't understand this, it sends a ping out to a computer in Seattle. and that computer turns that around and sends it back. And the time it takes for it to get to Seattle and back is 10,000th of a second, which is pretty impressive for that distance. Our microwaves are, we typically don't gain, but with the routers and the microwave delays, we typically don't gain more than about a millisecond per hop.
Okay.
So all in all, I'm guessing that we're going to be 20 millisecond. Very consistent. If you saw the one slide, our uptime for up to 200 megs is 100% with our engineering of this. Even on our gigabit capability, if you look at that, you'll see the percent that we're capable of doing it is 4 to 5 nines. And if anybody wants to discuss any of that,
Yeah, happy to as well after.
Okay.
yeah.
I think a pretty important factor there is a lot of people have look at, say we get really nasty weather.
That's what my next question was,
Yeah.
rain fade.
Really nasty weather, there is potential of reduction of the,
That's in this chart.
yeah.
Mhm.
But comparative to satellite, where the dish has to point up and you get snow load, you have to clean it off, we don't have that problem. So if we've had with millimeter wave radios, when it's just nasty downpouring, we've had them slow down a little bit for sure.
Mhm.
With this, with the large dishes, very little effect on them. So.
I was just seeing if it was the slide I was thinking.
Oh, you have it right here, but you
Yeah.
can send it out there.
This is 200 megabits per second, which is 100% uptime.
Yeah.
And that's worst case weather. It's still at 100%.
Could I get a question in? It seems to bounce between 2 or 3 people.
Oh, gotta have names. sorry.
Microphone.
I think you can probably hear me. My name's Ron Webb. One of the things that seemed to caught up everybody off guard when I was listening is this E-rate thing has been around for a long time. And this lady here, in the last 10 years, has been in the forefront of it. There's a lot of people have never been involved with the school. I know when I got on with Pam, 10 years ago, this was something that was a very important thing for us. And that's what made all of our students fully qualified to go down to Troy and well ahead of every student in the Troy School District. So that E-rate is not a new thing. It's been around for a long time. And if anybody's got any questions, you can ask Diane. I do have a question for you, a couple here for you gentlemen. I'm a firm believer anything could go wrong will go wrong, but you kind of answered that. I guess when I think of, and I look at my experience in the military, is Mother Nature plays a big part of a lot of things. And so I was just curious, in your experience, and you've had quite a bit of it over in Idaho, maintenance things that go down in very bad weather, is this something that's common, uncommon?
I can answer that.
Yeah, by all means.
We have 20 towers. Actually, I think we have more. But anyway, we have 20 towers that are totally monitored. We design it for, as I was saying, 5.9 reliability as far as the radio gear. We put battery banks in every tower site that have typically 48 hours of backup on batteries alone. We have backup generators on site that will start if those batteries get low. We have alarming that if the batteries, if the generator didn't start, to tell us to get up there. We have snow machines. I have a Thiokol 11 foot wide that will, there's still limitations to fog, but you're not going to stop it in the snow.
But I guess my question is, have you guys ever had anything to disrupt your line of sight? Like, say, an earthquake moving your tower or any
Never have.
Okay.
To date, we never.
Okay. I mean,
You know,
like I
there-
said, I'm a
there's-
firm believer, But anyway, well, that's good. Now, how long is this contract with you guys?
Ours is just a completion contract, and then it's supply of internet, and I can't, actually, you may be able to answer that.
We signed for 5 years because that, with the 5-year contract, it was the least expensive because the longer you signed up, the lower your monthly rate. And once we get this, we're not going to switch to anything else. So why not save ourselves the most money by
Mention
signing
one more
up for
thing,
5
Kevin.
years?
Okay, thank you.
One other thing real quick, in the direction of reliability, there's a statement that has been made many times, and when it comes to phone lines and in-the-ground fiber optics and all that sort of thing, man can take it out. Radio waves, it takes an act of God. It's very reliable. We have backups for the radio gear. So even, knock on wood, hope it never happens, but even if a radio got hit by lightning, which is possible, I'm not saying it's not, even with all the grounding and everything we do, it is possible. But even with that, we have backup equipment. If we get to the tower, we'll get it fixed.
Okay.
Knock on wood, we've never lost a
We
backhaul.
live in an area where, anything could happen.
Yes,
You don't have a
it's,
backup to a
I can never guarantee 100%. We've had great,
I was just curious if you'd ever had any situation.
And if you didn't, then we thank you for your service.
Oh, no problem.
Craig?
I had asked a question previously about the modulation of the frequency, and you said it was a proprietary frequency, and you don't know who's modulating it. That's what's been weaponized by DARPA, is the modulation of the frequency is what causes health problems. Cells' inability to take up oxygen, heart arrhythmias. And because of that, and you don't know who's taking liability for that, and who's modulating those frequencies, I would advise, as a member of this community, that, no disrespect to all the hard work that's been brought in to bring faster, better, more reliable technology to the community, that the health concerns outweigh all of that. You don't know who's modulating that, and that's been weaponized. That modulation of that microwave frequency is what the weapon is. And the school has a contract. The attorneys can get them out of that contract based on the fact that nobody's taking liability for the health concerns of that weapon that's being brought to this community.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions or comments? If you have any questions to ask these fellows now because they're here and then you'll know. So are there any other questions?
Chair, I'd like to make a statement.
Yes.
In support of, I am a speaker here, so. I just want to say that I too am very, I'm in awe of what this person, Diane, has done for this community and the work that she's put into it. My nieces and their work with you has been phenomenal. One of the things that we did do, and I believe strongly that this is true, is we kept the cost of this program as low as possible so that the match was very low. We're not going to fully pay for this with the funding that's there. It will come close to covering our costs, but we definitely are not profiting on this. Not saying that we aren't. We're not going to eventually make money because we want to supply internet to the community. But this project, it's for the school, so we did our best to keep it as low as possible. And I wanted to thank you personally for everything.
I do have actually one small question. So
Noah
for-
Kehoe?
Yes, ma'am. Noah Kehoe. So for some of the community members that live off grid, so it's like we have like a bunch of little areas like South Fork and Riverview, and then places across down Plano Lake, and they're all geographically segregated by mountains. So obviously towers would have to go in somewhere else. If that was the case, do your towers have the capability to run, like say someone said, hey, we'll lease you a chunk of our land because we're up high for a tower. Would that tower be able to like supply for like a small area of the community like hardwired internet so that it wouldn't be an extra power consumption for those that are off grid?
We actually talked about that.
Even in coming here, we're just having a conversation about possibly putting the tower off-site from the school and bringing fiber to the school.
Okay.
So as far as what you're saying, yes, definitely.
The capabilities there.
When you're talking about off-grid, the radio that goes at somebody's house takes very, very little power.
About how many watts would you say?
The power supply says 1 amp at 120,
Okay.
but it doesn't draw anywhere near that.
Okay.
It's probably real close to the amount of power that a router takes, which is, I'd say you can, I'd have to double check it, but you can run your router and the radio, which runs on a PoE, power over Ethernet. You can run those both on less than an amp.
Okay.
And so our whole network is all backed up. So even when your power's out, your internet will work. And if you have a VoIP phone on our network, if you have a UPS on it, it will keep working. So it's all backed up to run 24/7, whether you have power or not. We have a lot of customers that run off grid, lots of them. And to conserve power, they might shut the router, the radio down at night. But they can just turn it off, turn it back on in the morning, and it'll be working.
Okay.
And absolutely, if a community gets together and says, hey, let's do this, guys, put in a project of fiber to the different places, yeah, absolutely, you could do a project like that. We could work with the area and make it happen.
Okay.
We have something along that direction. We feed a radio link into housing for Elk Mountain Farms. And then it's kind of like a large motel for the migrants that come in for this harvest. And it's hardwired to every room with a Cat5. So we can do it with Cat5 if you close together.
Yeah.
But we also can build a fiber network and feed that network with the point-to-point.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
I have a
Okay.
question, and I don't know if you can answer this question at this point. How far in, monetarily wise, are we committed at this point?
Which I mentioned, we would bring over, we can't give exact because.
Just give me a
yeah,
ballpark
it's
figure.
Under contract, of course, but we estimated that we're about 50,000.
So, at that, if it is the opinion of the community that, and you demand that the school stop this, you're going to pay $50,000 for what's done. Because that's the way the contract is. Okay? That's your tax dollars, my tax dollars, and I can tell you right now, the school doesn't have $50,000.
Diane,
Yes?
I'd like to ask a question.
Barry Miller?
I'm guessing, more than likely, unless you go the route that Noah talked about, where you lease a private site, you're going to be dealing with the Forest Service again for another line of sight tower to service more of the community. It won't be the same one necessarily that is servicing the school. So how long did it take again with the Forest Service, and you're going to have to do that again?
We could go on And certainly there are some ideal sites on Forest Service ground, but in our surveying of the area, there's also some very good private spots. So, if you have to put in 2 or 3 little towers to bounce it up the valley or down the valley, that makes better sense than one major site up on Forest Service ground for us, because that's expensive. And then we're in lease. One of the things that we've been very successful at is people that put small towers on their property for us to let it go to other people. We give them free internet service. So those type of things we try to work with the community on, just to keep the infrastructure as the least amount of impact as we can. So large tower sites, awesome, but that's a very expensive site up on Boulder. So we try not to put in a bunch of those.
Thank you.
One more time. Any more questions for these?
I think there's one more.
Mr. Purdy, my question has to do with, like Craig was talking about the health benefits that are proprietary, so we don't have any idea. Is there a way, if it takes a lawyer, if it takes whatever, to find out what studies have been done on that modulation and exactly if you can, I guess you'd say, know whether things have been weaponized, because I've heard of the weaponizing of some of these, like Craig has talked about also, but without, like Diane was saying, we don't want to spend $50,000 that we've already spent and then find out that this is something that our community wants to be out from under because of those things, or is it going to be too late? It's going to be weaponized before we have an idea.
I can get more information in that direction, and if we get email addresses to send it or to Diane, and then spread it out to everybody. At this point, all I can tell you is that based on Cambium's working with our government, they have approved their equipment for whatever modulation it is, whatever frequencies it is. They've approved it, and what they tell us as on installation of this equipment, nobody can sit in front of it closer than 16 inches. Now, it's their studies. I don't have the modulation. I can see if I can find some more information on that. But based on Cambium's work that they did, the manufacturer, and based on them having to get this all approved by the FCC and any government entity based on RF, period, that they did get it approved. And all their books say, stay away from the face by 16 inches if you're going to be there for extended times.
So I guess, I don't know if anybody in here, like me, has 32 and a half years of military service, messed around with radios and stuff like that. But I can almost stake my life on the fact there's nothing these two gentlemen have that's going to be weaponized in the Yak Valley. Trust me on that one. I mean, you're talking stuff that's rumor mill. I mean, we've been talking lasers for 30 years. We just finally got one to work in the military. I mean, what you're talking about, weaponizing the Yak Valley, it's serious. There's nothing up here in the Yak Valley worth weaponizing. Okay? God, I mean, I just amazed that people, we're not in some kind of a security thing up here. I don't believe the Canadians are going to come
believe
down.
That's what the people are saying. They're saying that if we find out health risks that are not known, whether it's whatever they're doing with it,
Yeah.
that we want to be covered and not.
I agree with you. Well, Teresa, I agree with you, but the bottom line here is you got to realize all these corporations that are making electronics for everybody, including the government, there's certain proprietary things that is part of the system. I mean, but it's not, they're not weaponizing. I mean, they'd have to weaponize the stuff these gentlemen are using in Bonners Ferry. not up here on Balding Mountain or at the Yak School.
We do use the exact same technology on all 20 of our towers. So that same technology is everywhere in Boundary County. But to speak to your question, if that is found to be true, then certainly from a legal aspect, if you found documentation or studies, whatever it was, that would prove that, certainly from a legal perspective, you'd win. I mean, I'm just making a personal statement. If the company that manufactures this equipment truly was doing that and helping the government in doing it, I don't see how you couldn't win.
There's no way you couldn't win it. I mean, we are going based on
We'd probably
guidelines.
be joining with you if that's true. I mean, that's.
I would.
But I
can tell you that.
I honestly don't believe that's true. But I'm not saying I can't have my mind changed. So at this point, we believe everything we do is 100% safe. We believe it's the safest technology. Period.
Yes.
May I?
Yes, you may. State your name, please.
Marty Van Manen. I guess I just, I've been sitting here listening to everybody, and I completely want to support the school and their need for the technology for the kids. I worked down at Turning Winds with the kids, and it's the same thing. Down there, they've got to have the ability to get on a computer so that they can do their schoolwork. But I was going to be quiet because I don't understand all the technology stuff. But one thing is it Kevin?
Ron.
Ron, I'm sorry. It bothered me, I think, when you really started getting on a couple people's backs here just for having their opinion.
No, that wasn't.
But you did.
Well, the thing of it is,
You made it sound like
and I
the people up
apologize.
here and their opinions are a bunch of hicks and
No.
their opinions don't matter.
Yeah.
That's what makes America America.
Well,
is
I'm not arguing
the
that.
very opinions and thoughts
Yeah.
and the freedom to speak those.
Yeah.
So while I want and can support what the school's doing, I still want to know everything that could possibly come down the pipeline through something being shot down the valley. Okay? Part of why I came to the Yak was it is one of the last places that has not been invaded with technology and all that crap. There's a lot of us that live up here because we don't want that. Okay? So while this is a huge need and massive years and finances have been put towards this project, I still think to just poo-poo and kind of jump on people for their concerns of what might come down the road. That's what I'm talking about. It might be safe now. You might say this, that, or the other today. But we know technology changes by the minute.
Absolutely.
So once it's in here, it's done. It's not going away. And the Yak will be changed for the future. My concern is what might be coming down the pipeline. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I think that these fellows are going to answer everyone's questions to the very best of their ability. And Diane will be receiving information. And if you want to have any answers to any of these questions, make sure she has your email address or a physical address, something, so that she can get the information to you.
Or a telephone
Okay.
number.
Yes,
I
somehow.
will say, and I apologize, just one thing to your question, which we think is very important. Technology has massively changed just in the last 11 years. The amount of investment that we've made because of those technology changes. We started out with a radio that truly was more hazardous, right? Because it could go more through trees than the newer technology. But because of those concerns, one of the things that they have done is made this equipment a lot more safe. They've reduced the power greatly. So we may see another technological change. We spend millions of dollars making those changes because we want it to be the safest and the fastest and the best. So we put a lot into it, and we will keep up with it. We're not just going to leave you guys alone. I promise you that.
Okay, so I thank EL Internet Northwest for coming and answering our questions and continuing to provide information for us. And I appreciate everybody's input who has spoken and everybody who has sat here and listened and not said a word. Anyway, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
And,
Can I say
and
one
thank
more
you
thing?
all.
Yes, Teresa.
Diane, it's Teresa Purdy. Diane said that this was publicized or whatever years ago when she first started it.
Yes.
How do they go about doing that? Because I know a lot of people up here have asked me, when did they start this? How come, you know? And so
Diane can give
up
you
in
a
the
list
act, we're
of all of the
also,
places.
I guess, out there, that how can we reach more people if any community events like this happen? Is there a mailing we can do just for the YAC residents or anything like that that would actually?
Mass mailing in the act costs a lot of money through the post office.
Right.
Diane, where do you put all of the
The
notices?
notices are posted here, they're posted at the federal building, and they're posted at the store. It is also on our school's website. It is on our school's Facebook page.
There's still a lot of people who don't do those things too. So that's
Teresa?
what I'm saying. Is there
We
any-
can't personally call everyone
Teresa?
that isn't in touch. When you see something that perks your interest, you need to be a good citizen. You need to say, hey, have you heard? Tell all your friends.
And that's true.
That's how a lot of you got here today. Because somebody in your neighborhood saw the notice and started with the telephone and started calling people. I can't call everybody.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Teresa,
sir.
maybe you could set up some kind of phone tree so that when somebody sees something, you can.
I'll tell you, I was one of the people that got called, because I don't go to the park, I don't go to the federal.
I don't either.
I don't have internet.
I don't either,
I don't have
but
so-
set it up with
That's
your
one of the
neighbors.
things we need to work on. is
Set it up
how
with your
we get
neighbors.
Right,
information
and
out
that's
to
what I'm
everyone.
asking, is how.
Yes.
From a
Yes.
legal standpoint, you have to post in the
Yeah.
method that's noted.
Right, that's what I'm saying, I know she did that.
But
Yeah.
yeah, she's going way beyond that, and I love it if you guys, this is an
A
awesome,
phone.
this is an awesome turnout.
Set
for
up
this
a phone
rally. I
tree
just
so that
wanna let you
everybody
know.
gets contacted.
That'd be cool.
That would
Actually,
be
Would
great.
be a phone tree.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
one person,
And just is on the list that I have here, if anybody didn't put their email on there,
Or phone number if you don't use it.
yeah, you know, that way the school can get a hold of it.
Well,
That's why I was asking.
And if anybody wants to put their name on a list, I mean, if I get.
I can photocopy the list and give it to you. If you want to start a phone tree.
I say, I'm willing to
If you do
that.
not have the internet, please leave your number. Teresa is volunteering to.
Hey, you have to call too, I'm not.
You're gonna get suckered in.
Okay, okay, we're going to, hold it a minute. I need to say this. We are going to adjourn this meeting so that can hear it. Okay? Thank you all.